Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're in Masechtas Ketubot daf Tzadik. We are going to begin on Tzadik Amud Aleph by the new parak, new Mishnah. So you have a situation where a person was married to two different women, and he died. Now, the fact that he was married to two women, and they both are going to be claiming the Ketubah, Harishona Kodemes L'Shniya. The woman that he was married to first comes first regarding her claim for the Ketubah. And for that matter, the inheritors of the first come before the second. What does that mean? What do you mean the Yarshim? It said that he died. They didn't die. So Rashi says, let's say that he dies, but then afterwards both women die. Before they were able to collect the Ketubah. So the din is that the first woman or the first heir of this woman comes first. And then the Mishnah continues. Nasas Rishayna Umesa. Let's say he married one woman and she died. Says Rashi, B'chayev, while he was still alive. Nasa Shnia, he married the second one, Umes, who? And then he dies. So this is a case where the first woman died before the husband, and then the husband dies while the second woman is alive. So Nasa Rishonu Mesa, so she died. Nasa Shniya Mes, who? So Shniya v'Yorsheh Kaidman l'Yorsheh Rishon. Interestingly enough, in this situation, the din is that the second Yorshim come first before the first. Now, why is this the case? Again, the husband died, the women died. So why in this situation we say the Yorshim of the second one comes before the first? We just said before, the first always comes first. So Rashi says like this, and this is actually the answer to question 1. In what situation why would the second come before the first? To collect the mother's ksuma, umatam. So let's look at Rashi. So this is the case where again first the woman died, then the husband, then the second woman died. So the second they collect first. Why? Shehi balas chayv is because in the second one it's considered to be like a loan. Aval rishaynim, when it came to the first one, boim liyarish esavihim, they're coming not as a balchol but rather to inherit their father. Ta'inun yirtun tanan. So therefore, in this situation, the children of both kids, they are coming for the Ketubah. So in this situation, the Binin Dichrin goes to the sons of the first wife. But this is the Koyach of a Yaresh, which is only after the Balchol was paid, namely the second children. So the second children are considered like a Balchol in this case. So therefore they are the ones that get paid first. And then afterwards, through the Ksubas bin Dichrin, which is a Yerusha, that comes afterwards. So it's like when it comes to the liquidation of a business, the first thing you have to do is you have to pay off all your obligations. If you have loans, or people that are have holding, let's say, corporate bonds against your company, so that the law is you have to pay those off first. So now the Gemara says as follows: Meditani harishayna kodemes l'shniya. The fact that it says the first one comes before the second, so the ratio of the Mishnah, it's a language of kodemes. So volokatani harishayna yeshla v'shniya einla. So it doesn't say one has, one doesn't. It just says one is before the other. So Rashi says, it must be talking a situation where there's only enough for one, because otherwise it wouldn't. It's like, okay, if there's enough money to go around to pay all the obligations, so it really shouldn't make so much of a difference. What the nafkamin would be, who comes first at the end of the day. So you're writing two checks, so who cares if 2 seconds later you're going to get the next check? It doesn't really mean anything. It must be we're talking about a situation where there's not enough money to go around. So therefore, that's why it's important to know who's the one who's going to get the money and who's going to end up basically not getting anything. So therefore, that's what it's come to tell you, that really the first one is entitled to a first. However, nonetheless, if for whatever reason the second person would grab it, because they're entitled to it. It doesn't say the ain law, that they have no shaykhs to it. It just means that there's someone before it. So you shouldn't be the one that gets it. But if you already grabbed it at that point, we're not going to take it away from you, because you also have an obligation. They also have monies that they're entitled to. But since, just as a practicality, the first one's the one who's supposed to get first. But if the second one would grab, then we say that the grabbing is okay, and we're not going to take it away from them. Shmami no, we can understand, as Rashi says, kodemus lachatchila, that this is only talking about lachatchila, one comes before the other. But if the second one came and grabbed, we're not going to take it away. Bal choy mu'ucher shekodem v'gava ma shegava gavoy. L'chayra, it's the same thing when it comes to a bal choy mu'ucher. So if you have two people that you owe money to, so the money is going to be liquidated, you have to pay the person who had the original loan, the first monies that were borrowed, that were lent to you, and that's the proper order. And especially if there's not enough money, so the first person should be the one who gets paid first, because the second one should have understood and maybe have looked into the fact that there was another outstanding loan before you lent out this money. So technically, we give it to the first. If the second person who was owed money, if the malbud grabbed this money, for the same logic, we would maybe say that we don't take it from them. No. Maybe the second person who grabbed it, let's say he would grab the money, that wouldn't work. So my kodemus, lagamri katani. It doesn't mean that in only l'chatchila, but it means entirely. So it says Rashi, shin l'shnia klum, that the second person, even if they would be typhus it wouldn't work. They wouldn't be able to hold on to it. Rather mafkin mina. Kidit not. Similar to what we said before, ben kodem labas. We say that a son comes before the daughter. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean when it comes to Yerusha, if the daughter would grab the money away that she gets to keep it. No, the son is the one who's entitled to it and not the daughter. So too, when it comes to over here, the din is that the first one gets it, and even though the second one grabs, then mafkin mina. Or you can say like this. It doesn't say im, if the second person comes and grabs it, the in the mitzvah and the other, we're not going to take it out of his hand. The fact that it doesn't tell us this additional chiddush shows that he has no right to take it, and the second person does so, then we would take it back from them. So therefore, actually, we can deduce the opposite. That if the second person would collect and grab, that's not a good grabbing. Maybe actually is a good grabbing. So I did the Tani Shniya B'Yarsheh Kaidim L'Yarshi Harishayna, since when it came to the language of the Yarshim, in which we're compelled to use this language. The second one comes before the first one, says Rashi, Deboilu Misne Seifa Shniya B'Yarsheha Lishna De Kaidmin. The reason when it comes to the Yarshim, it's a language of who comes first. We can't say this idea of if the Yorshim, if the children would grab it incorrectly, the Havadi Moitzian, because in that situation certainly would take it away, im tafsu, if they would grab it away. The Chziku Bakarka, the Hanixi is ishtabid l'shtar de balchayv. So when it comes to the children who would grab it, certainly there's nothing to talk about. So since it mentions in that situation, as we continue to Sanim and Beis, so Tani Nami Harishayna Kadem Shniya. But really, it's possible that the din is that if the second person would grab, if the second woman would grab the money, possibly in that situation, we would actually say it would. She would be able to hold on to it. She'd be able to still keep it. Okay. Okay, good. Shmami Nosas Rishayna. So he said let's say you married the first woman, and then she died, and he was also married to a second woman, but the man died first, and then afterwards she dies. So in that situation, the second set of Yarshim get first, because they're considered to be a Balchov. So Shema Mina Talas. We can understand from the language of our Mishnah 3 different Chidushim. First of all, Shema Mina Achas B'chai v'Achas B'moso. This is a case, as we frame it, is Achas B'chai v'Achas B'moso, because one woman in this man's life, he was alive when she died, and one, he was already died and she was still alive. Yesh and Ksubas bin Dichrin. We say that the first woman's kids, there's still a din of Ksubas bin Dichrin. Ksubas bin Dichrin, as we've established before, is where the man, a father, let's say, designates money to be given over to his daughter, and that her sons will inherit, and it's not part of the general pool of the Yerusha, because he'll end up saying, why should I give any money over here if, let's say, there's another wife and all of a sudden it's being split among children or grandchildren who aren't even mine. So therefore, Ksubas bin Dichrin, it's written into the Ksuba that the monies that are brought in through this dad, this father, the din is that it goes to his daughter's sons. Now that applies even in this situation of Achas B'chai v'Achas B'moso, where the first woman died while the husband was still alive, so there's still a din of Ksubas bin Dichrin. We're not concerned of Lansuye, that there's going to be this quarrel. If the first set of Yarshim, the first set of children, the first group of children, they get their Ksubas bin Dichrin, which takes away from the entirety of the Yerusha. So the second group of children are going to say, hey, it's not fair. Why is this happening? Why are they getting this money? So we're not concerned that there's going to be this quarrel between the second group of children who have this, they're Bali Chayiv, they're entitled to money through their mother's Ksuba, and these people through Ksubas bin Dichrin. Mikdam hu dekadmi. The second group comes first, Baha'ika Shakli. But if there is money still remaining afterwards, then the first group of children will get the Ksubas bin Dichrin. Okay. Rishayna Mikdam hu dekadmi, Ha'ika Shakli. That's one point. So the first chiddush is that we see, in the case of Achas B'chai v'Achas B'moso, that there's a din Ksubas bin Dichrin. Second of all, Shema Mina Ksuba Nasis Moiser L'chaverta. It says that a ksuba is considered to be Moiser L'chaverta, is considered to be extra. What does that mean? Which is also, I think, a Beferish question over here. Yeah. TA 14, it just asks point blank, Ma habir ksuma nasas moiser l'chaverta. So we're going to understand this right now. TA 14. But let's start by looking at Rashi. The afagav the lo tikkun ksubas bin dichrin el imkein yesh meiser al shtei ksubos dinner. So the way it works is ksubas bin dichrin is not the same element of it as a Yerusha. So the only time that the children will be able to get their ksubas bin dichrin is if after that, let's say, is paid off, there's still money remaining. So that this way that money could be split up. As Rashi says, "Delo mi'akri nachla deraisa." Otherwise, the Ksubas bin Dichrin, which is a rabbinical enactment, will end up taking away from the whole concept of Yerusha, which is the din deraisa. And therefore, because of that, you have to at least have some money remaining so that an actual division of some assets take place, which again is a din deraisa. Now says Rashi, "Hani mili." Ki mesu shtehen b'chayev. That's only in a situation where there's this requirement, is when both of them died in his lifetime. The tirvayu also b'toras bin dichrin, and therefore the first set of kids and the second set of kids, they're both coming with the same claim of ksubas bin dichrin. Aval achs b'chai v'achas b'moso. Over here, one died while the husband was still alive. One was still alive when the husband died. Shashniya nigvas b'teres chayv. So the second one is able to receive their money as a chov. Ein locha Yerusha gadol mizu. So he said there's no Yerusha greater than this. So let's look at Rashi. And so that's what he says. That the children who receive Yerusha have have a chiyuv to pay off the Baal Chayv, namely the other children, for this loan, which is, well, as we call it a loan, but it's the ksuba. So therefore, the ksuba is nasas moisel chaverta. In other words, even though normally it's necessary that you have to have extra money after the ksubas ben dichron, but since the children, the second set of children, they are considered as a chiyuv that the ksuba has to be paid by paying them off, so that in itself is enough that even after that and the ksubas ben dichron are paid off and there's no Yerusha money left, we can still give the ksuba. We can still give the ksubas ben dichron. How do we see this? Mamai medalokatani im yesha meiser dinner. It doesn't say that is a requirement. It must be even if there is not a meiser dinner. Okay, TA 14. Ma'abir ksubas nas is meiser dinner. So let's see if I said it cleanly enough. Kishemesa achas b'chayv yachas b'moisai miskayemes Yerusha deraisa. We say it's considered like a Yerusha deraisa took place. Bezeh shiporin hayorsh neksu b'lishnia. The fact that the first set of children are going to pay off their financial obligation of paying off the ksuba to the second group. B'havli kamoiser dinner, that's comparable like having this extra money. V'chal din ksubas ben dichron, and therefore for that alone, ksubas ben dichron work. That you can actually collect the ksubas ben dichron. So that's the second thing that we learned. So again, the first thing is that there is an element of ksubas ben dichron in our case. The second is that you don't need to be moisev dinner. U'shema mina ksubas ben dichron will tarfim mishubadi. When it comes to this, it's not something in which is tarfim mishubadi, says Rashi. Do tema yitvun tanan ubal chayv havi. Don't say that they're considered like a bal chayv. That when it comes to ksuba, maybe it's considered like you're a Baal Chayv. This is how we're establishing it. But maybe that means now you can collect from any liens on properties. So he's saying that no. That when it comes to Ksubas ben Dichrin, that is not considered to be an element of Yirtun, of Yerusha. Because if in fact it's true that the Ksubas ben Dichrin can be collected from liened land, so Leisa b'nei Rishayna, so let the first group of kids come, they should be able to take the land from the second. Fine. So how do we know all this is true? So the first Shema Mina, maybe we're not going to establish. Maybe there's no Ksubas ben Dichron. Umay Kaidmin Lanachal Katani. It just means that they are first to get inheritance, but not that they are entitled to the Ksubas ben Dichron. It's what does this mean? Because it's not coming from the mother. I did the tanishni of Yersha, taninami Yershi Harishayna. Okay, so it's possible that the first one is not necessarily proof. Maybe there is no ksubas ben dichron. With the ka'armid ksuba nasas moisel chaverta, that again you don't need this extra money in this situation because the paying off a Baal Chayv, as Rashi said, ein locha Yerusha gadol mizu. Dilmul oyome malach ein ksuba nasas moisel chaverta. Maybe the ksuba doesn't enable again this loophole, and therefore you still do need to have an extra dinner. Dinner. Or maybe it's just because there's extra money over here. And that's the reason why it doesn't mention is because we have a multitude of extra money, but maybe it is required. And maybe this whole notion of achas b'chayv achas b'moiso, it really is a machlos tanoim. The sanya mesu achas b'chayv achas b'moso, which is our case. Ben nenes oimer yichon ben rishon loim l'nei shnia. The first set of kids consider the second b'nei balos chayvatem. You are people that we owe money to. Til ksubas nimachem. So take your mother's ksuba utsu and go. So that's you can say. Look at Rashi. Atem b'nei balos chayvatem. Uksuvas imachem. Hoyel v'chayvhi, since you have an obligation to pay off this ksuba, the einchem boyim l'teres bin in dichrin, You're not coming from ksubas b'dichrin. Will be inan meiser dinner. We don't need this meiser dinner. The enlucha nachla deraisa yafim azu. There's no greater nachla than this. She'anu v'atem parim chayvas avinu. I'm paying off our father's loan. Hilkach talo oisam. Take your ksuba money. Utsu. V'ana nitul hashar b'ksubas b'dichrin. We'll take the rest. Rabbi Kiva Omer kvar kapta nachla lifnei b'nei rishayna. The nachla already literally jumped into the first. The naflif ne b'nei shnia, and therefore it will be considered as a regular Yerusha. So my love, hakamifli. The mar savar achas b'chav yachas b'moisa yeshen k'sus b'dechrin, umar savar achas b'chav yachas b'moisa ein lehem k'sus b'dechrin. According to Rabbi Kiva, he says that there's no k'sus b'dechrin. So Rabbi ashchinu rabban the Bei Rab Diatavi Kamber the Kuli Yalma Achas B'chav Yachas B'moisa yeshem k'sus b'dechrin. Really, everyone holds that there is k'sus b'dechrin given. So therefore, how do we understand this machlok? Because v'hacha b'ksuba nasas moisel chaverta, v'odin l'bal chayv k'mefagi. The whole question is whether or not, again, you need this extra money. Mar savar k'suba nasas moisel chaverta, v'odin l'bal chayv. And therefore, when it comes to this collection, even if there is not a extra dinner, the ksubin itself has the status as a bal chayv, and therefore that's the reason why, even if you don't have any extra money, the first kids can still get the ksubas and dichron. Mark 7, ing ksubin as moisel chaverta. But bal chayv, when we're talking about a situation of a bal chayv, in that case, kuliyamul will pligi to have a meiser. There's no question about it. Says Rashi, Hoyel v'hashtar yoytza al kulam. Since you have a document, nimsa kulam poidim. The he nachla shalahem. This is like Yerusha. She'asu lahem mitzvahs priyas chayv avihim. It's the mitzvah to pay off your father's loans. Ki pliga b'ksuba. Mask Rabbi Yosef. Ihachi. If you want to tell me that's the case, Rabbi Kiva Omer kfar kaftza nachla. Why does it say that language? Im yesh meiser dinner meboile. If it has to do with meiser dinner, he should just specify it as such. Look at Rashi. Keep playing b'ksuba. B'achsachayv b'achsach b'moiso. She'eshniya chayvhi. So pligi ben nenes. Savar harizu kashar chayv v'havi meiser. So he says that's considered to be like any situation that's considered to be like extra money, and therefore you don't need anything else. You can still cut ksubas and dechan. Kiva savar lav kashar chayv nami. The fact that the second group is owed the money for the ksuba, that's not like a regular chov. Kivan the inhu gufaihu koshakli, because they're the ones that are taking it. Hilka chanach b'nei shniya mekablin v'loy payer nimsa she'en kanacha deraisa. There's no deraisa inheritance. V'lo iskin Yerusha's bin dichrin derabanan l'merka nacha deraisa. The only way, again, to have a rabbinical law is only if the deraisa one still stands. So Ella Rav Yossi ba'achas b'chayv v'achas b'mosa kamifagi. In fact, this must be the machlokas achas b'chayv v'achas b'moisai. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's see if there's another question. TB 15 possibly. Nasa Sirishayna b'mesa, Nasa Shneya b'mes, who Yarshi mi kaidmin ligvos ksubas imon. Sounds a lot like the Mishnah. The second one, Umadu Amadin Bekidmu Hacher Betofsu. Okay, so they add that. So the din is that the second group are the ones get the Yarshi Shnia because they're coming B'Kaich Bal Chayv, because the first Yarshim have an obligation to pay off their father's loans. However, and then it says over here, the Afil Tofsu Moitzian. So even if they're typhosit, we'll take it away. Even though it was back and forth, we end up saying that no. If the second group would be typhus, if the first group rather is typhus in this situation, then moitzin, we will take it away because they didn't have a right. Similar to that a ben is koydem labas, it doesn't mean that the bas could take it and be typhus at that we're not going to be mafkin minay. Instead, we will take it away. Adkan.